Good morning, LinkedIn. It's great to be with you again for our latest LinkedIn Live, and excited to be able to tackle a topic around leadership again today. I'm joined by AJ Waters. AJ and I met through LinkedIn, kind of randomly, to be honest. He's out of Omaha. I'm in Iowa, so geographically we're not that far apart. But AJ is going to be an interesting speaker for us today. It's going to be great to get his personality that'll show through, as well as his perspective. AJ describes himself as kind of an engine nerd, a tech evangelist, a storyteller. I love the fact that he's kind of at the crossroads between construction and technology, two pieces that are near and dear to my heart. But I think the topic we're going to tackle today around kind of the cost of hero leadership and kind of this firefighting mentality that can come into the workplace will be applicable across industries. But AJ, thanks for being with me today. Appreciate it. And yeah, we'll get started here in just a minute. One thing I will say, we, as always, love to have your engagement during the process. So for those that are tuning in live, feel free to drop a note in the comments, whether that be a question, your own perspective, even introduce yourself. That would be great. We love the opportunity to get kind of live feedback and obviously tackle the things that you want to hear. The other piece here is if you're watching the recording and you do have questions as well, use those comments. We'll see that as they come in later, and we can always respond to you and make sure that you get what you need. So with that, AJ, I'm gonna pepper you with some questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you and I had a conversation. Now it's been almost probably a couple of months ago now, as we were kind of considering some of the core issues that we see within organizations, and this topic of firefighting came up, especially in blue collar environments or engineering environments, where people manage both projects and people. And I think both of us came from the perspective of firefighting is in many ways, sometimes, or at least rewarded in some organizations, maybe expected in organizations, but not always delivering the results that we would like it to, and that there is these hidden costs that go along with it. So just in general, as you think about the clients that you work with, companies that you work with, what is it about blue collar or engineering types, people like us, that draw them into firefighting, especially when they get promoted to leadership for the first time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And again, thanks for having me, Joel. It's funny because I've lived this life, right? As an engineer, I've been in that place where I was drawn into the firefight, and it was exciting and it was fun. But I think by nature, right, engineers and blue collar workers in general, by nature, are creative problem solvers, right? Like, they're in the industry to solve problems. They majored in physics and math if they're in engineering, and that's all it was, is a lot of story problems. And so by nature, like, our skills look for problems to solve. And we're always chasing, like, where can I be helpful? Where can I solve a problem? Where can I provide a solution? Because that's just innately how we're wired and how we were educated, right?
Yeah, and I would say, to take it even a step further, if I'm coming from the perspective of somebody in construction or manufacturing, and I've been promoted from a role, the reason why I got there in the first place was because I was good at what I did. I was a good problem solver. Mm-hmm. I fixed problems. I did it quickly and efficiently and productively, and all those things that we value. And I think with that, the problem is we sometimes reinforce the same problem, right? If I'm a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so if I'm
Yep.
a problem solver and I feel like firefighting is what I get rewarded for, everything's a problem. And so I go after it that way. One of the interesting thoughts that you had when we kind of delved into this originally was, there's even a little bit of a dopamine hit that people get from this, right? Like I fixed something today. It's like I get my truck at the end of the day to drive home, and my way that I debrief on the day is like, did I get everything accomplished that I wanted to? What did I consider a victory? And most of those victories were problem solving or fixing things. At least in the fields that I work with, and I would think engineering is the same way.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about construction just in general, right? Like you won't find a construction worker that isn't excited to point out what they built, right? That they will always point to, I was a part of that, or I solved this, or we did that. And you're exactly right, because like solving these problems, building these things, having this purpose, it's exciting. And when a situation arises for a firefighter type person, they get excited to go out and battle the fire, right? Like they get excited to go to work, to solve the problem, to get to an answer. Like that is very rewarding. And to your point earlier, that tends to get promoted because it's visible. People can see results. And while it might not necessarily be a core leadership skill, right? The tactical things that you were good at doing are what got you noticed in the first place. And so that's what you fall back on. And so you have a lot of fun, you have a lot of excitement, and a new problem arises and you're like, oh, I'm going to go tackle this issue and I'm going to go have some fun. And that is exactly kind of that hit to the brain, or to even the ego a little bit, right? Of I did that, and that was me.
Yeah.
But it's funny, right? Because Joel, we talked about this too. Like that part of the issue is that work or that reaction, and that ability to fight the fire is what tends to be seen as valuable, right?
Right. Yeah, and I want to make sure people don't hear what we're not saying, which is it is important to be a problem solver, and there are going to be times you're going to have to firefight, and you probably should get rewarded for that, but there is a hidden cost to it, and I think that's the component when we think about leadership within construction or other blue collar areas, or really in any company, to be honest, that there is a cost to that. And so, as you think about the work that you do, what do you feel like the long term cost is of organizations constantly rewarding the firefighters or kind of heroes in their organization, especially in leadership?
Yeah, and that I think the first cost, number one, and I saw a quote just this morning from Craig Rochelle on social that leaned into this, and that was, don't see people as a means to get things done, but see getting things done as a means to develop your people. And in my opinion, the first hidden cost when it comes to firefighter leadership is you jump in before your team has an opportunity to do so themselves, right? You jump in to save the day, which, I mean, you can see the shield sitting behind me, right? Like I'm all for the superhero. But when you jump in to save the day, if you do that too fast, that means someone else didn't get an opportunity to solve that problem first, right? And if you're a leader, your number one responsibility is to develop that team, not to solve the issue.
Yeah. And I love that quote. I'm going to have to find it because I need to post it someplace close to me. But the thing I really love about that is the switch in mindset, right? Where we are not about the problems that we solve, right? Especially in leadership, we're about preparing other people to solve those problems and equipping them.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of the things when we do leadership training and leadership coaching, that mindset shift is really hard for people, especially when you've been promoted into a role like that because you were the best firefighter or because you were the best problem solver. I mean, it would just be natural to keep doing what you've always been doing. But when you jump in and kind of put on your cape and fly in and fix the day. The problem with that is you're not creating other people around you that could potentially be superheroes, right? And actually superheroes in the roles we pay them to do. I see too often where people have been promoted from a team into leadership. They're managing the team they used to be a part of, or they're still part of, but used to be just a coworker in, managing the people that did the job that they did, and they still want to do that job.
Right.
I keep trying to reinforce with people, you don't have a job, you have a role and responsibility. And your role and responsibility has changed. And so that's why I love what you said there, because it helps us shift to part of my role is developing other people. And if I jump in too fast, I pull away that opportunity.
Well, and like, let's look at it from a holistic standpoint too, of like the company, right? Like if we keep rewarding the leader that's still firefighting, right? That's out there putting out all these fires and again, heavily visible, like it's something that you can see tangible results. There could be a leader in your company that isn't putting out any fires because they've done their job so well, right? Because they've been proactive, they're preventative, because their team is putting out the fires, right? So you could have some of your best leaders being overlooked for future opportunities because at surface level, it looks like they're not doing much because they're not out there with the cape on, fighting the fires, doing the things. And it's not because they're a bad leader. It's because they led so well or from the front or they got ahead of things that the fires didn't start in the first place, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of the invisible work that they've done, right? Because it's pretty easy to go across the organization and say, man, I'm looking over there and AJ is always first to the fight. He's fixing things. He's taking care of our customers. He's whatever, right? And that's easy to see. But sometimes what we don't recognize is, well, part of that is because AJ is always so reactive. He's never actually solving the problem. He's just fixing symptoms. And so he has to rush to save the day. But John over there doesn't seem like he ever is problem solving, quote unquote, or ever trying to become a hero, because John's done the proactive work to make sure that the issues don't come up again or issues don't come up at all. The other fascinating thing for me is there are sometimes I think organizations actually reward this behavior to the point that I see my identity or my value as a leader in fixing problems and firefighting all the time, that when there's not a problem or a fire to fight, I actually feel like I have to start one, right? I have to almost stir up trouble. And this concept of firefighters becoming arsonists in their organization sounds super ludicrous, but it's actually things that we see, right? Where I'm actually looking to create problems so I can solve them, so that I reinforce this image that I can be a hero at any moment. And that has like a horrible undercurrent to it. I don't know if that's something that you've seen as well.
No, I think you're exactly right. If I get rewarded for doing a thing, right, I'm going to actively find said thing to do. And so if it's fighting a fire, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find a fire to fight. And if there's not one, I'm going to find something. And to your point, it might not be purposeful that I'm out there starting fires, but it might be purposeful that I'm out there not preventing them, right? Like I'm not openly trying to keep them from happening from the start, because if I do, nobody's going to see that, right? And I'm gonna get ignored like the other people that are ignored. And so, yeah, if I'm rewarded for fighting fires, I'm constantly chasing a fire and I'm constantly trying to get out and do that, and it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like I'm gonna be the arsonist in the background, trying to make sure that I still provide value. And that goes back to your mindset shift, right? Like that's because as a leader, my value has been tied to the fire. instead of being tied to the people and developing the people and the new role that I have, right? And I remember this very vividly. A few years ago, I was talking to my boss and I was like, we have got to figure something out because I spend too much time doing and not enough time developing. Like I'm stuck in the fire and I can tell that it is hurting the team. Like we had a new hire, they weren't coming along as fast as some of our new hires in the past had. Like you could sense that there was too much time being spent in the tactical and not enough time being spent in the development side. And that, again, going back to, it's not just about you anymore. That was detrimental to this individual who never really got their feet under them and ended up leaving because of that. But to carry that on just a little bit further, then the question comes down to, instead of being a firefighter, what does it look like to be a fire chief? And Joel, you've spent a lot of time developing leaders. So when it comes to like that mindset shift that we've been talking about and the way that we slide from firefighter to fire chief, what have you seen? Like, what does that look like in a person versus just being reactive all the time?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question for me because, again, I'll go back to that mindset shift. So if I'm always thinking about what's just right in front of me, like this present challenge, and I'm never thinking about the bigger problem, right? Or even thinking about the landscape differently around, what's my unit, right? Like is it just about me and the work I have to do? Is it about me and my team? Is it about the company as a whole? Is it about our market? Like, how big am I thinking? When we start thinking about it that way, the shift from reactive to proactive takes on a different level of importance, right? And I see this most often. I'll use an example of if I have a welder who becomes a weld supervisor or a weld lead or foreman. All I'm ever doing is trying to figure out how we're going to get whatever needs to get done by the end of the day done. And that's what I'm rewarded on. That's as far as I'm ever going to think. And those are the same guys
Right.
who will tell me they can't be out of work, they can't leave work, go on vacation, whatever, because if they come back, everything's gone to hell in a handbasket, which is really influenced by their leadership. And so if I can think a week out, a month out, that's a big part of being proactive, but also thinking about problems differently, right? And so I think too often, because we are stuck in the now, we fix symptoms, but we don't actually fix problems. And so that's where this mindset of being more proactive for one as the leaders is big. The flip side of that is being able to think about how I develop my team so they can be more proactive, right? So from a leadership perspective, that equipping component, like my role as a leader is to equip my people, to set them up for success and to think about their future instead of just their present is a big shift. How about you, AJ? I mean, you work with this as well. What do you see in that area?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because we had a question come in that actually transitions well right into where this is headed, which is how do you get your team to bring solutions instead of just the problems to you, right? And part of that is you've got to stop solving them too quickly. Sometimes if your team's not bringing you solutions with the problems that they uncover, that is a sign that you are the firefighter or the hero leader, where you're always solving it for them so they don't have to, right? Like they've never been required to do that. And so it kind of goes back to your mindset shift first. Get your mindset to, all right, I'm going to develop these people. We're going to focus on working through the problems with them versus solving them or jumping in to help, which, another personality test. I'm one of those Enneagram 2s. So the helper right out of the gate, that's what I want to do. But I've got to take that step back and make that exact request to the person and say, all right, you've surfaced this problem. What would you do? And if you don't have a couple of ideas or thoughts yet, we're gonna let this simmer a little bit. Think about it, and let's get back to it. And obviously, if it's a major catastrophe, we've got to get into it right away. But ideally, you use the smaller fires, the ones that are more contained, to allow your people to put them out first, and only jump in the case of the forest fire, right? Like the massive, we've all got to collectively get to work to solve this particular issue.
Yeah, all hands on deck.
Yep.
The component of that I think is critical too is, and I want to make sure I say this well or correctly, is when I'm looking at my team, I also have to be able to say, what is it that AJ needs, or Sean needs, or Susan needs right now to equip them to be the problem solver that keeps this from ever coming to me. And so this thought process of, I think Deborah was the one that asked the question, like, how do I equip them to do that? Or how do I encourage them to do that? I had a sign, it was more for me than for anybody else, but a sign on my office next to my desk when I was still in the corporate world that said, this is a solutions playground. If you're going to bring a problem, bring a solution. Right. And that was just my mindset, because I could find myself at times essentially complaining, like, hey, here's the problem. Somebody should do something about this. Or I'd go to my boss and say the same thing. When I became a manager, I realized that a lot of people would come to me with the same thing. Like, hey, Joel, here's what's going on. What should we do? And it was a mindset shift for me to think, okay, what does that person need right now? They need to be able to solve this, because I'm not always going to be here. Or I'm not always going to be in this role, and maybe they're going to be in this role someday. So one of my first questions would be, I don't know, tell me more. And what do you think a couple options are that we could pursue? Right. And put it back in their plate. And to your point, like, if they don't come with that, to be able to say, hey, once you take a couple days, gather more evidence, think through what some possible solutions are, and then come present pros and cons to me, and let's talk through it.
It's interesting, right? Because all too often, I think people see this as more of a risk than really it is. But you should constantly be training yourself out of a job, right? Like, to your point, you should be developing your people so that at some point, one of them takes your spot, because otherwise you're going nowhere, right? Like, if you're the one who has to be there for the team to operate, then you'll always have to be there for the team to operate. But if you can train yourself out of a job, then you have opportunity. It feels counterintuitive, because job security wise, like, you don't want to set up the opportunity for you to be replaceable. But at the end of the day, that's the only way you A, create opportunity for yourself, but B, develop your people. And it all, in my opinion, it always comes back to developing the people. Like, that should be the focus first and foremost. If you're constantly putting out the fires for them, it's just like tying your kid's shoe. If you're always the one tying the shoe, they're never going to learn to tie the shoe, right?
And it's an interesting paradox for a lot of people, right? I got my job because I'm really good at it. So if I stay really good at this job and I don't train anybody else to do it, I'm going to have this job.
This job.
What's interesting is when you provide the opportunity for people to grow into your role, you're also providing an opportunity for you to grow into a new role, right? Most leaders who develop leaders get an opportunity to develop more leaders. And again, whether that's leaders of people, leaders of projects, doesn't really matter. But I'm listening to Beyond Entrepreneurship by Jim Collins, who's fantastic with a lot of the books and thought leadership he has. But he talks about career and why sometimes people get so focused on their career, they forget just to do a really good job on the work that they do. And his whole point is, in whatever role you're in, be great at it. And if you're great at it, your career will take care of itself. And I think the same thing happens when we think about leaders and organizations and this thought process around being proactive and not firefighting all the time. It's like, yes, you can be excellent at problem solving or excellent at firefighting or fill in the blank, but your role, your responsibility was to lead people, right? Or lead projects. So to do that, you're going to have to equip others, and you're going to have to build up others and provide opportunities. If you do that, you're going to get rewarded in the long term regardless. And so I think both on the organizational level, the leadership level, is to start having these conversations about what's important to us, right? Yes, we want to make sure we solve all the problems for our customers, but we don't all, each of us, have to solve those problems. We need to equip an organization and build an organization that can solve it together.
Yeah, and there's I'm trying to remember, I think John Maxwell said it, but it was somewhere along the lines of, if your people require you to get things done, you're a manager. If your people can get things done without you, you're a leader.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm looking at our time here, and we're running out of it. We try to keep these right at 20 to 30 minutes. As you think about resources or ways that other people could lean into this, like what's one big action step that somebody that's listening today that's maybe been struggling with this firefighting mentality, what encouragement or coaching would you give them to take the first step?
Yeah. And I mean, it's going to be hard, right? Because again, the dopamine hit, that's what I've always been rewarded on. That's what looks good. It's going to feel counterintuitive. It's going to feel difficult. But the number one tip is, the next problem that comes to your desk, see if you can delegate it, right? Can someone on your team do it? Or can the person who just brought it offer suggestions first? Back to Deborah's question, right? Like, what can you do to take the next problem that comes across your desk and give someone else the opportunity to grow? And that is a practical tip that you could try this afternoon, when the next fire is undoubtedly going to pop up.
Yeah, most of us won't have to wait very long before the next fire pops up on our desk. So try it today, try it tomorrow. I mean, it's going to take some time. I mean, building these kind of habits, these proactive habits, it's not something you just, flip the switch and you're good at right off the bat. You're probably going to try and fail at this a few times. You're going to find yourself jumping in before you can jump out. Catch yourself, learn from it, and try it again. That's the best way to learn.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you being here, AJ. Appreciate the folks that have been engaged in the conversation today, watching this live or recorded. Obviously, if you want to learn more about what AJ does, the work that he does, both in construction and technology, he's also has an incredible podcast you can take a look at. Reach out to him via LinkedIn. He's got some great info out there. If you want to learn more about leadership, and especially in the blue collar and production spaces, and how to equip leaders, develop leaders, feel free to reach out to me as well. But I appreciate your time today, AJ. Looking forward to maybe a future conversation on these types of topics. And for everybody else out there, have a fantastic rest of your week. Spring break potentially for many of you. So if you're tuning in from a beach somewhere, what in the hell are you doing? Get back to your Mai Tai. But we look forward to the next one.
Yes. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
You too.